What's up guys, Justin here with the CGEssentials.com. So in today's video, we're going to talk about how to add custom libraries of decals to the add-on Decal Machine for Blender. So I did an introduction video to that a while ago, and this is something that I wanted to cover because there's a ton of different libraries of things that you can bring in to Decal Machine to use as decals. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. All right, so first thing first, example model for this video comes from SKETCHFAB, and I downloaded it through the SKETCHFAB add-on, but it's the Sci-Fi Military Container by Epic Hard RU. I will link to that in the notes down below. It's licensed under Creative Commons Attribution, so you can download this and follow along. But what we want to do in this video is we want to talk about a couple different ways to download object libraries into Decal Machine, and there's a couple different ways that we can do this. So first off, the examples that we're going to use, there's a free 22 decals nuts and bolts by Daniel Glabinski, which I will link to in the notes down below. He's made these available for free, or you can put some money in there as well. I recommend supporting the developers wherever you can. So if you can throw $1 or $2 his way, you can definitely do that. You can download that for free. We're also going to use a free sci-fi decal set from Ponte Rayuri off of ArtStation, which I will link to in the notes down below as well. So we're going to bring both of those in, and they're in different formats, which is going to be good for what we're going to try to do. So the first one, this 22 nuts and bolts, this is going to come down as a zip file, and he actually has instructions in here on how to import these. So it's pretty simple. We're basically going to use the import function of Decal Machine to bring these in, and since they're in a .zip, it can actually read that file. So inside of Blender, let's go into our preferences, and under Decal Machine, you should see all of these different options in here once you've installed the add-on. And so there's options for your key maps and other things like that. We want to focus specifically on our assets right now. And the first thing is I've created a custom assets folder that lives where all my other assets do, just so that I can keep all of this kind of separate. I've created a decals folder, and what I've done is I've taken the two files that you get from those two authors and brought them in, right? So the first one is the nuts and bolts. The second one is the free sci-fi decals. One is a zip file, one is a WinRAR file. So the WinRAR file is a different method of packing the files. And so if we look at this, this tells us that we can import an existing library by clicking on this button right here and basically finding that library. So we're going to bring in the nuts and bolts. So to do that, I'm just going to click right here. I'm going to go find the nuts and bolts zip file, double click on it, and this is going to read that folder automatically, and it's going to bring those in. So notice how when it does this, it brings these in so that you can actually see that library in this list. So it's actually gone through and found all of those decals really quickly. And so if we were to go over here into our model and just type the D key, notice how the nuts and bolts is going to now show up in our Decal Machine menu. So you can click in here, you can find all those different nuts and bolts that are in here. So let's say, for example, that we wanted to add some nuts and bolts on the top of this. So we could just click on it, type D, and then let's go with something that glows a little bit. So this one's emissive, let's bring this one in. So we're gonna bring that in. It's gonna take a second to load. I'm gonna scale it down. We'll move it just a little bit, and then we will duplicate it a few times. And so notice how we were able to bring those decals in really quickly and really easily. So now we have access to that entire library in here just by clicking on this. Let's say that you decide you have like a ton of libraries in here, right? So you can also go up into edit mode. So go to edit, preferences. Let's say you don't want that to show up anymore. You can check or toggle the visibility right here to turn that off. So now if I was to go back in here, hit D to access Decal Machine, notice how that's not going to show up in here anymore. So that's how you can bring in a zip file. That's super easy to use. Let's talk about that WinRAR file for a second. So if we do edit, preferences, and we were to try to do the same thing with that WinRAR file. So if we go into decals, and we try to bring in this .rar file, we double click. Notice how you get a little error that doesn't stay on here long enough for you to read it, and nothing shows up. right? So that's going to be a little bit of a problem. So what we need to do is we need to extract that into a folder. And so for that one in particular, you'd need to go to WinRAR's website and download the extraction tool. But I've already done that. I've extracted these into this folder right here. And if you double click into the folder, you can see how all of those decals are in here as different blend files. So those are all contained inside of that folder, right? And so you're going to notice that not only can you import a library from a zip, you can also just import it from a standard folder. So if I was to click in here, all we want to do is we want to go into that folder. I'm just going to select this one so that I get in here. I'm just going to click on accept. And what that's going to do is that's going to take all of the assets inside of that folder and that's going to bring them in. Notice that takes a second for it to do because it's working in the background, but that creates a library based on the label of that folder. So now, if we were to come over here, type D, notice how our sci-fi decals are going to show up in here. So now we can use the sci-fi decals on this as well. So let's say we wanted to add maybe a little bit of detail. We'll say over here. And I'm just going to project this as shrink wrap. So I'm going to hold Shift and click this. So this is going to shrink wrap that to this face. Then I'm going to duplicate it over here and do the same thing. So notice how now I have access to both of those custom libraries in here. You can toggle them on and off inside of your preferences. So if we wanted the nuts and bolts to show up in here as well, we could just go toggle those on. Then those are going to show up in this list as well. So you can use this to manage your library of decals for Decal Machine just by doing this. So I definitely want to talk more about Decal Machine in the future. I love how many libraries are out there of things that you can bring in and how quickly you can use Decal Machine to add or make things look more realistic inside of Blender. But I'd love to hear from you guys. What kind of Decal Machine tutorials would you like to see in the future? Have you tried it yet? I just love having that conversation with you guys. If you like this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new Blender content every week. If you like what I'm doing in this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Every little bit helps, so make sure you check out that link in the notes down below. But in any case, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.